Greetings, salutations, and welcome to this midday power surge. This is your spiritual oasis on this pilgrim journey. I'm your host, Andrew Henriquez. I want to begin this lesson with a pertinent question. And this question was asked several weeks ago at a World Economic Forum Global Summit meeting. And here's the question.
And the title of this session, are we ready for a new world order?
Now, we have been told that 2023 is year one of the new world order. So 2024 is actually year number two for the ushering in of the new world order. And how many years is your plan? And by this time to implement the mark of the beast crisis, 7 years. So between now and 2030, expect the great mark of the beast crisis to be enacted. Unless divine providence holds back the winds of strife just a little longer. However, things are moving rapidly. And what underpins this new world order? What underpins the coming mark of the beast crisis? It's going to be the economy. Clip one.
And it's not about the U.S. versus China. It's about what underpins a world order is always the financial system. I was very privileged. My father was an advisor to Nixon when they came off the gold standard in 71. And so I was brought up with a kind of inside view of how very important the financial structure is to absolutely everything else.
Everything else. And this is the Pope's agenda. The new economic order. The Pope is actually labeled the chaplain of the new world order. It's time, he said, to implement the new economic order. And we know that that is based on Revelation 13, verse 15 through verse 17. And in Revelation 18, speaking about Babylon, which is popery in the primary sense, she must controls. Popery must control the economy. The gold, the silver must control the economy. And then to enslave the masses. It's right there, chapter 18 of Revelation, verse 11 through verse 13. And then is going to be fulfilled the mark of the beast crisis. You won't be able to buy or sell except you receive the mark of the beast. And that is fulfilling Revelation 13, verse 15 through verse 17 is the Pope's plan. Now, the question I'm going to ask you next, who are we going to believe? Those who are calling for an economic meltdown in a few months? Or the other group who are actually saying things are okay? There's no economic crisis in the forecast in the near future. Who are we going to believe? Here's clip one of this segment.
Meanwhile, economist Harry Dent is making a dire prediction about the market next year. He says 2024 is going to bring, and I'm quoting him now, the biggest crash of our lifetime.
All right. Here is clip two. Here he is.
The worst in your lifetime. I think 2024 will go down is the single worst year for the stock market in the whole history of the stock markets, including the 1929 to 32 as any single year. Okay.
Clip three.
A growing cohort of billionaires and CEOs are unloading stock and at an increasing pace after little activity last year. Our Robert Frank's been tracking that action and joins us with some numbers. Important dynamic to watch, Robert.
Yeah, Carl, very important for investors. The first half rally giving shareholders a chance to cash in some of their chips. America's top billionaires selling over $9 billion worth of stock just this year. Topping the list is the Walton family, selling $4.5 billion worth of Walmart shares. They have sold over.
I wonder why. And here we have Warren Buffett. He's also selling off his stocks. And as a result, it is ringing alarm bells for the American economy. That's what they say. Now, 2024 will be the biggest single crash year in our lifetimes. Do you know what the economists are telling us? Don't listen to your financial advisor. Well, here is the second group who are now saying everything is fine. Don't expect a crisis in the economy. And who is spearheading this second group? The Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen. Here she is. Headline says, Janet Yellen says 2024 is going to be a very good year for the economy. ABC News. Watch, listen.
We have an economy that has been growing at a good, healthy pace. I see no reason why that can't continue. I think 2024 is going to be a very good economic year.
A very good economic year. Don't worry about anything. Who are we going to believe? Clip 3. Listen.
Of a recession diminishing for Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. Yellen sitting down with ABC for an exclusive interview.
But no reason right now why there would be a recession this
There's
year.
no obvious reason why there would be.
President Biden touting.
None whatsoever. Who are we going to believe? Friends, I'll tell you something. The Bible tells me in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse number 3 that when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction. I'm not going to tell you. Well, let me ask you, who are you going to believe? Which group? You know, friends, I'll tell you what I believe and the mode by which I live. I simply follow God's word, knowing at any time the crisis can hit. Therefore, by God's grace, I want to be found ready today. So if the crisis were to come today, by God's grace, I'm ready. If the crisis is, let's say, protracted, a little longer, delayed, I'm still ready by God's grace. If there is no economic crisis in the near forecast, why are we seeing the ECB, the bankers all around the world, talking about the certainty of a bank run? Why? Why would there be a bank run? Watch this. This is actually the European Central Bank president. Here she is. Headline says, she asks bankers to monitor social media for early signs of bank runs. That's January 24th, 2024. Let's read some of this. The ECB has asked some banks to closely monitor activity on social media. I wonder why. Banks can run into financial trouble if clients rush to pull deposits at the same time. I want those of you who are live with me right now. Which principal social media site are they actually targeting? Which one are they blaming? Because people post on this particular site on social media, it threatens banks. They'll persuade people to go and pull out their deposits. Which one are they targeting? I mean, chiefly, while you're typing, let me continue. Headline, here it is. It says, Wall Street Journal, the bank runs are faster now. As a result, regulator calls for stricter rules on flighty deposits. There it is. Banks need new liquidity rules to guard against bank runs. Why are they doing this if everything is okay? Look at this carefully. It says Global Watchdog to report in October of 2024 on social media fuels bank runs. Which one principally are they talking about? While you're typing, look at the red words. Posts on social media help to accelerate outflows from Silicon Valley Bank in March 2023. That bank failed last year. Depositors pulled 42 billion with a B from SVB Bank in just 10 hours. Why would they be putting in these measures if everything is okay? Now, of course, some people are going to bring their retort to try to contradict, but you know exactly what these signs represent. All right, watch this. It says now, blue words. What role has social media played and what role has new technology played now that customers can withdraw money using a mobile phone? You can see clearly why very, very soon they have to implement the central bank digital currency. One reason of a myriad of other reasons to stem bank runs. Which bank will you go to? By the way, do you realize they're closing banks? Yeah, look at what's happening here. We're talking about banking centers, in-person banking. Headline, Fed to allow emergency bank lending program to expire on March 11th. That's just what, 5 days ago that was written. It says the Federal Reserve on Wednesday said a funding lifeline created for banks last year after the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank threatened to spark a wider financial crisis would close as scheduled in March. What? Why would you need a lifeline? Let's go naturally. If someone is drowning, what do we throw out there, as it were? A lifeline. Bring it into the economic sphere. The lifeline is going to end March 2024. Something smells fishy. Yes. Watch carefully what this says. 3 million Britons to be left without access to cash. Why? Bank branches are closing at an alarming rate. Look at that, my friends. Look at that right there. More than 5,800 banks have closed since 2015, which is the equivalent of 54 banks every month. Why are they closing bank branches? You see my point? Here is the ECB president. Hear what she says.
The digital euro is on the move.
CBDC.
Yesterday, the Governing Council of the ECB approved the opening of the preparation phase.
CBDC, the same Christine Lagarde who is telling banks to monitor social media posts. So what's going to happen? If someone posts, banks are failing, go get your money, what will that social media do with that user? You mean marginalize? You mean shut down that person's account? It is coming. Media of the beast. Hear what she says now. You'll go to jail if you are found with cash over 1,000 euro. Look at what this says. Here she is.
No, the problem is they don't want to be controlled. They don't want to.
Yeah, but you know what? Now we have in Europe this threshold. Above 1,000 euros, you cannot pay cash. If you do, you are on the grey market. You take your risk. You get caught, you are fined, or you go in jail. But, you know, the
You see that, my friends? Clip 2. Let's roll it.
Threshold. Above 1,000 euros, you cannot pay cash. If you do, you are on the grey market. You take your risk. You get caught, you are fined, or you go in jail. But, you know, the digital euro is going to have a limited amount of control. There will be control. You're right. You're completely right. We are considering whether for very small amounts, you know, anything that is around 300, 400 euros.
Yes.
We could have a mechanism where there is zero control.
It's there, friends. So here is Yellen.
We have an economy that has been growing at a good, healthy pace. I see no reason why that can't continue. I think 2024 is going to be a very good economic year.
Listen to me attentively. They want us to have faith in the banking system. It's all about a trap. It's a sneer. Watch. Do you remember the FDIC? It's all connected. FDIC with the Treasury. Watch what they said. Clip 1.
I think you've got to think of the unintended consequences of taking a public that has more full faith and confidence in the banking system than maybe people in this room do. That we want them to have full faith and confidence in the banking system. They know the FDIC insurance is there. They know it works. They put their money in. They're going to get their money out. So there's a select crowd.
They put their money in and they can get their money out. No longer. No more bank runs. Clip 2. And they're telling us bank runs will come.
Right? I mean, it's important that people understand they can be bailed in, but you don't want a huge run on the institution. But they're going to be. And it could be an early warning signal.
And who are the ones who are going to be protected? Let them tell us. Some will and some won't. Clip 3.
Prices, this is similar to what Jay was saying, in the market that you can tell whether people understand who's going to be protected, who isn't going to be protected. It would be, I think, an interesting study to look at the evolution of market prices in a situation like March of 2020, for example, and see whether people understood what might happen. Right?
It's the same March 2020 when the pestilence 19 pandemic was officially announced. So we have a pestilence pandemic and an economic crisis combined. Does that make sense? And they're telling us the crisis may come on a Friday night, when you can do nothing. Why? The banks are closed.
Expectations to power our, our communications and improve confidence when the time comes.
So that if and when we do have to have that announcement on Friday night, ideally Friday night.
One more time.
So that if and when we do have to have that announcement on Friday night, ideally Friday night.
You see, friends, we are in a time of comparative peace, and they're telling us the crisis is going to come across as if someone flipped or snapped their finger. It's going to flip quickly. Watch this. Hear what he says.
I'd like to go back to some of Dick's early comments. I do think it is hard to get a lot of demand for transparency right now in this sort of period of peacetime. But that is going to flip, and it's going to flip probably even faster than we saw in 2008, where the need for...
It's going to come faster upon us than in 2008. The housing crisis, the meltdown. Well, when this happens, it's a possibility we'll be able to purchase property in the country at a very low, reasonable price. That's what we're told in an economic crisis. But friends, please do not bank on that. Implement the 5 keys of survival. This may very well be the last opportunity for those who are willing to leave the wicked cities to then flee. But do not procrastinate when God has already opened the gate for you to move. Remember the 5 keys of survival. With that in mind, I'm going to segue into our second half. It's a double header today. In this segment, I'm going to confirm to you, now they're telling us they are going to ban home gardens by 2030. Ban family gardens by 2030. Why? Your family garden is actually harming the planet. And they are not hiding these words, nor are they speaking in parabolic or symbolic language. Is this not a part of the 5 keys of survival? Country living, having food and water on your property. That's the second and third keys, respectively. And then, along with this, I'm going to share with you, the cities are now unsafe. Watch this. Remember, it's all about climate, right? Because climate sells. Fear sells. Here it is.
We're going to start focusing mainly on climate like global warming. And so our next thing is going to be climate change awareness.
Climate crisis, climate change.
Climate change.
Climate change.
Climate change. Climate change. Climate change.
Climate change.
Climate change.
Climate change.
Climate change.
Climate crisis.
Climate change.
Climate change.
Yeah. Here it is, friends. How food and agriculture contribute to climate change. Remember, this is not just news here and there. In Matthew 24 and verse 3, what will be the sign of that coming and of the end of the world? Verse 4, let no man deceive you, Jesus said. Deception in what areas? Verse 7, wars, famines, pestilences, earthquakes in diverse places, which points to calamities or climate change. Here it is now, friends. Here is Tedros from WHO that says the present food systems harm the climate.
Our food systems are harming the health of people and planet. Food systems contribute to over 30% of greenhouse gas emissions and account for almost 1/3 of the global burden of disease. Transforming food systems is therefore essential by shifting towards healthier, diversified, and more plant-based diets.
Plant-based diets, they'll be feeding you with worms and bugs, manufactured in their factories, their laboratories, and you won't be able to grow your own food. That was released recently, and here is John Kerry. He says in order for us to get to net zero, we have to tackle farmers and those who have their gardens. Net zero? What is net zero?
Agriculture contributes about 33% of all the emissions of the world, depending a little bit on how you count it, but it's anywhere from 26 to 33. And we can't get to net zero. We don't get this job done unless agriculture is front and center as part of the solution.
And now he's going to speak about growing food. Hear what he says.
But with a growing population on the planet, we just crossed the threshold of 8 billion fellow citizens around the world. We just crossed that in this last year. Emissions from the food system alone are projected to cause another 0.5 degree of warming by mid-century on the current course that we are today. A 2-degree future could result in an additional 600 million people not getting enough to eat. And you just can't continue to both warm the planet while also expecting to feed it.
So what warms the planet? Look at this here. Your community garden may not be that climate friendly. Your what? Your community garden. That's January 23rd. My friends, they are coming for our gardens. Here's what I want everyone to realize and note. These statements I'm sharing with you, they are all pointing to urban living. Urban living. Some people say, I'm going to remain in the cities and grow my own food. That's not going to happen. I want those of you who are alive to answer this question. Does the government have more resources to monitor compliance in the city or in the country, in the rural districts? Where do they have more resources to monitor compliance or those who are defiant? Here it is. Look at this right here, friends. Watch carefully. January 22nd, carbon footprint of homegrown food, 5 times greater than those grown conventionally. Homegrown food, 5 times greater. You're harming the planet 5 times greater. It's not funny. Let's read some of this. It says here, watch carefully, the carbon footprint of homegrown foods is 5 times greater than produced from conventional agricultural practices such as rural farms. Yes. Last paragraph, the majority of the emissions do not come from the growing of the food themselves. No, but from the infrastructure needed to allow the food to be grown. So what are they saying? It's not what you're growing, it's how you're growing it. So how are they going to monitor that? They must come to your home, look at your garden to see your pattern, your ways, your methods of gardening. So where do they have more resources to monitor compliance or defiance? City or rural district? All right, here it is again. Researchers grouped urban, city agriculture sites into 3 categories: individual or family gardens. That's number 1 in the 3 categories. Skip on down. The most significant contributor to carbon emissions on the urban agriculture sites we studied was the infrastructure used to grow the food. Number 1, from raised beds to garden sheds to pathways. And of course, if you're living in the city, many times you don't have enough ground to put the produce in, the seeds, right? So what do you have to do? Raise beds. You are destroying the planet. The cities are fast becoming inhabitable for God's people, those who champion, promote, and believe in liberty of conscience, the 5 keys of survival. Country living, anybody? All right. And now they're telling us it's time to register your family garden.
Hey guys, welcome to the Homestead. So the other day I heard from another YouTube channel that the United Nations was starting some sort of initiative to better maintain the food supply. And because we want to maintain the food supply, because we have a food supply, and we want to make sure we know where everyone's getting their food from the food supply. And so if they're getting their food outside of the food supply, we need to know about it as the United Nations. And the U.S. Department of Agriculture has now began its part on the United States side for that initiative. And you today, just right now, if you'd like, you're more than able to go on the USDA's website and register your garden.
Who's going to do that? Clip 2, as I wrap this up.
On down the website, it continues, people's gardens grow fresh, healthy food and support a resilient local food system. See, this is why the UN wants to know these things. If you have a food system that's outside of our food system, well, we need to know about it. If you have a resilient local food system...
I mean, you can watch the video, my friends. Remember this. Come back. Remember this. They're telling us you cannot be food independent. You must be food dependent. A government pauper. Why? The persons or organizations that control the food supply can control the people. Very simple. Very simple. Satan said that to Christ. All these things will I give unto you if you fall down and worship me. That's Matthew chapter 4, verse 8 through verse 10. And that is Revelation chapter 13, verse 15 through verse 17. Now, I don't believe I am a plant-based eater, so I don't believe I should be in the country growing chickens, rearing rather chickens, right? Notice, they want everybody to now register their chicken the chickens and chicken farm in their backyard. If you don't, they will fine you and you will be penalized. You will have a misdemeanor charge, even a felony charge. Look at this right here. Here it is. It says, Lisbon Council warns residents to register chickens. And let's read some of this. During this process, someone from the village will come to your house and inspect it to make sure you are in compliance with the law. Anyone who fails to register their chickens can face a misdemeanor charge. Yes, let the rooster crow. You can see, based on the application, they will now come to your home to inspect your garden. Will they also try to inspect your seeds? Where did you get your seeds from? Are your seeds from our factories? Because, you see, organic and heirloom seeds, they will then say, destroy the planet. You can only use our seeds, wink, wink, GMO. It's coming. And then they'll tell us, listen to me, then they'll tell us, we will give you an individual carbon footprint tracker. Carbon footprint tracker. You mean a carbon footprint tracker for your garden? Who is going to register their family garden?
We're developing, through technology, an ability for consumers to measure their own carbon footprint. What does that mean? That's where are they traveling? How are they traveling? What are they eating? What are they consuming on the platform? So, individual carbon footprint tracker. Stay tuned. We don't have it operational yet, but this is something that we're working on.
I don't believe it. Get off my screen. Stay tuned. That means a carbon footprint tracker for your garden. And they must do this by 2030. I'm not making this up. Headline says, transforming how we eat, a critical accelerator towards 2030 development goals. By 2030, transform how people eat. By 2030, transform how you garden so we can preserve the planet. No family garden by 2030 unless that family garden is based on our policies. The tyrants, the scoundrels, ban all family gardens that are non-compliant. That means by 2030, you own nothing. Not even a family garden, not even food, not even cash. You own nothing. You become a government pauper. That's what they said. Stop farming so we can reach net zero. Cut that. I have no time for that. Watch this.
I mean, ecocide as a word is becoming better known around the world, and the concept is generally mass damage and destruction of nature. But legally speaking, what our organisation and other collaborators aim to do is to have this recognised legally as a serious crime.
Crime? Ecocide. And what is she saying? It's right there. Individuals need to be held accountable for destroying the environment. Put them in prison. Imprison them. What acts? She says farming and fishing.
With ecocide, what we see is actually what people are trying to do, what businesses are trying to do is make money, is farm, is fish, is...
It's what? Farm? Ecocide. If your family garden does not go along with our agenda, you are committing the crime of ecocide. And the Pope says he supports ecocide. And ecocide is also in the international law. It's right there, friends. Don't miss this. And now churches are supporting the ecocide law. And Sunday worship is connected to ecocide law. What time are we living in? What time are we living in? What point stood out to you? Comment below. I want to hear what point stood, one point, one takeaway We're told, friends, the Sunday movement is making its way in darkness. And God's people are going to be fined. Some are going to be imprisoned. That time is right upon us. The 5 keys of survival need to be implemented. Why? We are being surrounded. Let's get to the country by God's grace. Become and remain converted by God's grace. A time is going to come. You will want to leave and you will not be able to leave. Like, share, and subscribe. We are streaming here on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter X. God bless.